On the line with us, Morris Pearl. Morris is the chairman of Patriotic Millionaires. He's a former managing director of BlackRock Inc. PatrioticMillionaires.org is the website. You can tweet Morris at Morris_Pearl or at Patriotic Mills, M-I-L-L-S. Morris, welcome. I believe you've been on a radio program before. Welcome back.
Great to be on your show, Tom.
Thank you. So tell us, from the point of view of a patriotic millionaire, your thoughts on the Senate and frankly, the House bill, too. I mean, there's not that much difference between the two of them other than a little smoke and mirrors about how long it takes for them to destroy Medicaid, about these two pieces of legislation that the Republicans are salivating over.
I mean, exactly, Tom. They're both destroying Medicaid, which is, and what they're both trying to accomplish is a huge transfer of wealth from the less well-to-do to the very rich in our country. They're reducing taxes on the people that earn hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and millions of dollars a year, and they're taking the money away from this over 60 million people on Medicaid. You know, 2/3 of all people in nursing homes are on government assistance, and they're taking money away from those people because they feel they have a mandate from the voters to reduce taxes on the very rich.
Yeah, which is pretty strange. I mean, as one of the very rich yourself, how do you respond to your colleagues, if that's the right word, who say, "Hey, wait a minute, yeah, I got, $10 billion bucks or my net worth or whatever, but I earned every penny of it, damn it, and government doesn't, where in the Constitution does it say government can take my money away and give it to poor people who just, ne'er-do-wells and quack, 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 quack." How do you respond to that?
Well, actually, the Constitution does say that. The 19th Amendment passed does say the government can take away some of their money and give it to other people. Yeah. That's the role of government. We have to do well together. I cannot get rich living in a country of all poor people. I cannot sell services and things to a country without any people who are able to buy those services. I don't want to live in a country filled with poor people. And frankly, most people don't. Most wealthy people understand this too. It's the people that don't are the people that run businesses extracting minerals from the earth, oil and coal. The rest of the people who run all the businesses on Main Street selling ice cream and beer, they know that they need people who can afford to shop in their stores and their restaurants. So I think almost everyone understands this except for a few very large political donors who really don't care. They feel that they were put on earth to make money from this earth.
Yeah. I have speculated in the past that this might be that if some of these folks, and I don't want to generalize too broadly, but some of the folks who kind of act like Scrooge McDuck, got to have more money for the money bin, that if they had not been born into wealth, or if they had not, become wealthy themselves, that we might instead be seeing them on television on an episode of Hoarding, that basically this is obsessive compulsive disorder. It's hoarding disorder, the psychological illness. Only instead of hoarding old tin cans and empty milk cartons and newspapers, they're hoarding money.
They do. It's true, Tom. Giving them more money is not really going to change their lives. I mean, for the very rich.
Right.
Some of them indeed are brilliant people. The people who are the most greedy are the ones who actually did not earn their money, or the ones who simply inherited it from their parents or grandparents. People like the Trumps, the Walton family that owned the Walmart fortune. Those are people who really had the brilliance to have smart, hardworking grandparents.
Right.
But most people who worked hard and earned money know that they got money because they lived in a community that provided both consumers who can buy their stuff and the infrastructure, the education, the roads, everything else. So I think it's actually a very few people. It's just somehow the other TV and radio stations, not yours, have convinced America that it's like morally wrong for some people to help other people. Yeah. And that's a shame.
Yeah, it really and truly is. And it's a sad commentary, frankly, on our media landscape as well. I spoke with the vice president of one radio network, Salem Broadcasting, some years back, and about getting our show on them. And he told me right to my face, he said, "We'll never put a progressive or a liberal on our network, period. Ain't going to happen." And the owner, co-owner of another major network that owns several hundred radio stations around the country once told me, to my face, in fact, in front of another person who was a senator, said, why would I put you on the radio when you're advocating raising my taxes? I'm not going to do it. And it's just like, when you get down to it, that's the level at which some of these decisions are being made. And it's just shocking. And it's just, how did we get here, Maura? We're talking with Morris Pearl, the chairman of Patriotic Millionaires, a group of high net worth individuals who are concerned about the future of our country, patrioticmillionaires.org. How did we get to this place? I've been reading this book, Democracy in Chains, which is just a breathtaking view of the rise of the right, starting with Brown versus Board. That seemed to have been the activating thing. And but what's your sense of how we got so horribly unequal in this country that we're back to where wealth inequality was in 1929 and the middle class is being decimated?
Yeah, I think that a small number of people, and I see the beginning is 1964 when Lyndon Johnson won the presidential election. Mm-hmm. A small group of people realized that they could, by starting at the base and growing up, sort of convince 50% of America plus one that it's just morally right to have a few rich people, lots of poor people.
This is the movement that brought Goldwater to the head of the Republican ticket, you mean, in 64?
Yeah. I mean, after Goldwater's defeat, that's when the large money people really started getting organized.
Oh, yeah, and that was 71 was the Powell memo. Yeah. 76 was, 72 was Powell being put on the Supreme Court, and 76 was the Buckley case where he wrote the decision saying that giving money to politicians is not a behavior that can be regulated, as it had been since the George Washington administration. It is free, constitutionally protected free speech under the First Amendment.
Yeah, and it's just the idea that they believe that rich people should have more power. They believe that that's just right. Yeah. And we can't argue about, this policy will be bad for poor people or this policy will be good or bad for rich people, because I think we all agree on that. Even the Republicans agree that their policies will decimate the poor. It's just we don't agree on whether that's the proper role of government or not. Right. They honestly believe that it's not the proper role of government to help poor people. And we believe it is the proper role of government, and we have to have that debate, not a debate about some technicalities about how many people live in which states and who will be helped and hurt by this particular bill.
Yeah.
But the basic philosophy, I want to live in a country where we can use some of our vast wealth, some of our huge resources to bring up the people who are less fortunate, and then I'll be richer too.
Back when the British Empire was unraveling and American democracy was at its very earliest, in its very earliest phases, a preacher by the name of John Calvin out of, I think, Scotland, maybe Wales or the UK, but in that region, pitched this idea that if we're going to do away with divinely ordained kings and queens governing us, since mankind is inherently evil, that's the first premise of Christianity, all people are sinners, then therefore we've got to figure out who God blessed, because the theory always was God blessed the kings and queens, and therefore they have the divine right to rule. So if we're going to rule ourselves, we have to look among all these evil people and figure out who was blessed by God to make them the rulers. And Calvin's solution was, well, the obvious, conspicuous demonstration of God's blessing is wealth. So, the wealthy should rule us, and this became Calvinism, and now it's kind of neo-Calvinism. It's the the school, the religion, and even the place that Betsy DeVos came out of, for example. The headquarters of the Calvinist Church in the United States now is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And Donald Trump echoed that night before last in a speech in Iowa, where he said he didn't want he didn't want a poor person running the economy, and he was saying this to justify putting the head of Goldman Sachs as his chairman of economic advisors and putting a billionaire as his Secretary of Commerce and a very wealthy guy from Goldman Sachs as his Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin. And I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
He honestly believes that. That's why it was such a big deal for him when some newspaper published that he has like $4 billion when he said he had $8 billion or whatever the numbers were. Yeah. That's why That's why that was like devastating to him, is because he honestly believes that how much money somebody has is the measure of how good that person is, or how deserving that person is, or something. And, you know, I've met other people like that too. He's not the only one, but I just think that's wrong. I mean, I disagree with that. And I think that's the debate we have to have, is that we have to talk to the American people and explain to them, you can be a good person even if you're poor. You can be a good person even if you're not a Goldman Sachs executive and make hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right, and you can be a competent economist and a competent manager of the economy.
That's true too. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
there are plenty of competent economists who are not rich.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It's very interesting times we live in. Morris Pearl, the chairman of Patriotic Millionaires, patrioticmillionaires.org is the website. You can tweet him at Morris_Pearl or at Patriotic Mills, MILLS. And Morris Pearl, the former managing director of BlackRock Inc., himself a high net worth individual. Mr. Pearl, thank you so much for being with us today.
Great to be on your show, Tom.
Great talking. We'll be back.